If you feel like you're stuck with anxiety, and that means you're constantly being bombarded with anxious thoughts and strange physical symptoms, let me assure you that you're not stuck like this forever. This is not a life sentence. So in today's episode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you how to rewire your brain and break free from the anxiety trap. My goal is for you to have a clear and actionable strategy to help calm down your nervous system, reduce and then eliminate your fear of anxiety, and move forward in the recovery process. Let's begin. Now, before we get started, if you're new to the Fearless Anxiety channel, my name is Peter Wessels, and I've been where you are. I know what it feels like to be completely trapped and helpless with anxiety, but let me promise you, there is a way out. I'm not talking about coping strategies or managing your anxiety. No, I'm talking about fully recovering and never having anxiety ever again. So what I've done is I've created a full roadmap for what I used to recover from my anxiety. And it's the same roadmap that I now use for my clients to allow them to fully recover from their anxiety. I put that roadmap in the link below. It's called the 5-Step Cure to Anxiety and Panic Attacks. It's completely free, and it's my gift for you joining me here today. All right, let's get into today's episode. What I want to address first is why this is happening to you in the first place. Why does it feel like anxiety has taken over your life? Well, the answer lies in something called a sensitized nervous system. Now, you need to understand that your nervous system is designed to protect you from danger, and it has what we call the fight or flight response. So when you're in actual danger, this system activates to keep you safe. It does that by flooding your body with adrenaline and stress hormones so you can fight or flee to safety. The classic example is imagining our ancestors hunting and gathering for food when they come across a tiger. Instantly, their body goes into fight or flight mode. They are flooded with adrenaline so that they can run away as fast as possible and hopefully get to safety. It is really an incredible biological response, and it's still embedded into each and every one of us. But when you're suffering from severe anxiety, what has happened is your nervous system gets stuck in overdrive. It has become what we call sensitized. What that means is it's continuously reacting as if you're in danger and triggering your fight or flight response, even when you're completely safe. What's really important to understand, and what so few sufferers actually learn, is that all the symptoms that you're experiencing, whatever they are, it might be dizziness, heart palpitations, panic attacks, derealization, those are all being caused by your overactive and sensitized nervous system. It is all this adrenaline and stress hormones that is causing these sensations. And as a side note, I've actually had episodes where I've dove into the details on most of these symptoms and explained the reasons for them. So you can find those on this channel. But for today, I just want you to accept the fact that these sensations are all caused by your body's own defense system. All right, here's the problem. These sensations feel dangerous. They feel like they're harmful and they feel threatening. And so what happens is that we become afraid of them. We are fearful of all these strange and intense sensations. And that is precisely why we get stuck with anxiety. We get trapped in this cycle where we are fearful of our anxiety. And what that does is it signals to our brain that anxiety is dangerous. Now, that in turn causes our body to release more adrenaline, which makes our anxiety even worse. And so this is an extremely important point, and I always want to make sure that you understand it clearly. I want you to recognize that this is a trap. This is what we call the anxiety trap. And it is fear, adrenaline, more sensations, more fear. You see how fear is at both the end and the start of the anxiety trap? What that means is your fear of anxiety is keeping you trapped with anxiety. And that is actually why I call this channel Fearless Anxiety, because what I'm teaching on this channel is how to become fearless towards your anxiety. Once you become fearless towards anxiety, once you're no longer afraid of anxiety and its sensations, that is when you exit the anxiety trap and your anxiety gradually goes away. Believe me, that is exactly how recovery happens. And I walk clients through this process and watch them recover back to normal lives. So the next question becomes, how do you lose your fear of anxiety? Well, the way you lose your fear of anxiety is by implementing what I call the fearless approach. It's a step-by-step response that you implement each time you experience anxiety. Again, I've put that in the link below, and I talk about it on this channel all the time. The focus for today, though, is going to be on the role that our brain plays in keeping us afraid and fearful of anxiety and stuck in that anxiety trap. All right, what I want you to do is for the next 24 hours, I want you to put a filter on your brain. I want you to be cognizant of what you are thinking about. Now, this is a fantastic exercise because it opens your eyes to the fact that you're constantly being bombarded with anxious thoughts. These anxious thoughts often start with the words, what if? For example, what if my anxiety gets bad while I'm at my child's music recital? Or what if my anxiety keeps getting worse and worse? What if I never feel like myself again? These thoughts, these anxious thoughts, are really sneaky because what they do is they disguise themselves as real worries. They convince you that you need to drill down into them and figure them out. But here's the truth. These thoughts are not productive. In fact, they're the complete opposite of productive. They do only one thing. They make you more anxious. What happens is you end up diving down a rabbit hole of anxious thoughts and worries. For instance, if your first anxious thought is, what if my anxiety gets bad while I'm at my child's music recital? Well, what happens next? Your brain doesn't stop with that thought, does it? No, it dives down this rabbit hole of anxious thoughts. And so the first thought leads to more anxious thoughts. So with our example, your next thoughts are, what if I have to leave? What if I have to sit in my car until it's over? Then you start worrying, what will my daughter think? What will other parents say about me? Do you see how that one thought took you down a rabbit hole of more anxious thoughts? And this can be happening all the time. When you're anxious, when you have an anxious brain, your brain can be drilling down into these anxious thoughts just like that. And we're really not that aware of it. We're not cognizant of it until you really step back and reflect and start putting that filter on your brain to see what you're worrying about. But what these thoughts do is they get you worked up and they get you even more anxious. And nothing's happened yet, right? In our example, you haven't even stepped into the auditorium and your brain has already played out the worst case scenarios. All right, so what do you think will happen when you actually go to that music recital? Well, you've created so much anxiety, become so anxious towards this event that you're going to go into it with high anxiety, right? And chances are you will end up having to go and sit in your car to calm down. All right, we cannot allow that to happen. So this brings us to one of the most critical steps of the fearless approach. You must learn to dismiss your anxious thoughts. And to be clear, dismissing doesn't mean suppressing. It means recognizing these thoughts for what they are, just thoughts, and then dismissing them as not having any significance. So what you're going to do is you're going to respond to these anxious thoughts with the phrase, who cares? For instance, the anxious thought of, what if I have to go to my car during my child's recital? Your response to that thought is, who cares? So you have this anxious thought and you respond with the phrase, who cares? Okay, I know what you're thinking right now. You're saying, but Peter, I would care if I had to miss my child's music recital. Yes, I know you would, but that is not the point. The point is that we're not going to give that anxious thought any significance. And there are two reasons for that. First, I told you earlier that your anxiety and all its strange sensations are just the byproduct of your body's defense system. So what that means is that these sensations are not harmful and they're not dangerous. Instead, they are actually a sign of your body in an ultra protective state. So by saying who cares, you're saying that you don't care if you experience harmless sensations at the music recital. You might become uncomfortable or even really uncomfortable by the sensations that anxiety is creating, but you're going to acknowledge them as nothing more than harmless sensations. The second reason you can dismiss anxious thoughts, and this one is fairly obvious, is because they're just thoughts, right? I mean, these are nothing more than little thoughts that pop into your head. They haven't actually happened. You haven't even gone to the recital yet. So you need to remember that our brain produces thousands upon thousands of thoughts each day. Most of them are random and meaningless. And when you're suffering from anxiety, these thoughts focus on worst case scenarios. So the problem isn't the thoughts themselves. It is how much power and significance you give to them. It is how much fear you allow these thoughts to provoke in you. That's what matters. And so with dismissing anxious thoughts, it is such a huge step of the fearless approach because it stops the train of anxious thoughts in its tracks, right? You don't allow one thought to take you down a rabbit hole of more and more anxious thoughts and make you have even more anxiety. Now, dismissing anxious thoughts is just one step of the fearless approach that I teach, but it is a really important step because it allows us to gradually regain control of our thoughts and help reduce and then eliminate the fear we have of our anxiety completely. After that, once you're no longer fearful of your anxiety, your nervous system desensitizes and all these sensations gradually go away. You are free from anxiety forever. Do me a favor, on the way out, hit the like button and the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Please also leave any questions in the comments below. I'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode.